Hello everyone and welcome to Tabor for the third round of the UCI Cyclocross World Cup. We are on board with Magnus White, the American national champion in the junior men's category, for a hot lap. As you can see, we've just run down the start-finish straight, which is followed by a right-hand corner on tarmac. This is a fast corner and can be tricky if there's a lot of grass or mud on your wheels, but overall it should be alright. We're just overtaking Casablanca Varsho before we go into the infield. This is the first corner of the tarmac into the grass, and once again the same goes as for the first corner. It can be difficult if you have a lot of mud or grass in your tires, but that should be alright this weekend. The course is relatively fast as usual, but there has been a little bit of rain causing the grass to stick to the tires. After a wide start, we here go towards our first bottleneck of the course, this bank. If you're in the middle of the pack, you will certainly be running this one, and the leaders might already be gone. Luckily, it's a course where you can let the legs do the talking and make up a lot of ground based on power in the second part of the course. Here we are going towards our first real technical feature on the course. We come to a ditch, and the question is, do you ride left or do you ride right? You need to cross it, but it's the quickest if you go back left this year. There's a lot less mud here and you can carry more speed than on the right hand side. You need to cross back a little bit over the bump, and then we come to a part that is very famous on the Tabor course. The 180-degree corners up and off the banks. We are behind Tabor del Grosso here, and he is showing that you can ride a wider line through the corner, but Magnus White is keeping it very tight. It doesn't really matter all too much as there's plenty of grip on all the lines here, so that certainly shouldn't be an issue. Most riders are running the Grifo profile with between 1.3 and 1.4 bars. So this was the last one, and the final two have a double banking, and now we are heading towards the first set of stairs on the course. These stairs are relatively short, pretty steep, but they're the easiest on the course. You need to hop on this flat part to bump it up this hill. Again, in the first lap you will probably be running this, but in the rest of the race it should not be an issue. Even if you don't manage to clip in, you are still able to power up that second hill. It's not all too steep. Following that, we come to this hill here. This is a man-made hill, a later added feature to the course, and there are some corners on this. Again, nothing all too serious. It's not really a super technical course. It's a relatively simple course, but they maximize the potential of it. Or well, they come close to it. You can see here, up and off the bank, another 180-degree corner here with some LED screens for the sponsors, and then we go up over the hill again. You can still see Tabor del Grosso here. This is the section where it's fairly easy to overtake, and if you have a bad starting position, this is definitely where you need to make some moves. Here we come to a big hill, and this is where you can get some airtime and make a big whip, as Magnus did right here. We're now crossing the start-finish road, and that means that we are going towards the second part of the course. The part of the course that contains a lot of climbing. You can see it's very busy as is usual on the Saturday before the World Cup, when there's a lot of training going on. So first we overtake the Dutch team led by Laura Molengraaf. We here have our first small bump of the second part of the course, and that is relatively easy. You can carry a lot of speed going into that. We then come towards the second set of stairs, and this is an interesting one. Some riders opt to get off their bikes before the corner and then run towards the stairs and hop on right after. Others try to ride the corner and then seem to hop on right here. It doesn't seem to matter all too much. It seems to be a matter of preference, but after the stairs you need to get down the power immediately because it's up this steep hill again, and there's really no time to relax. You want to be remounting your bike right after the stairs on the left side, as it's a bit less bumpy there. It's very tempting to relax on the section that follows, which is slightly downhill, but if you relax here you're either going to lose a lot of time or positions, or maybe even both. Something you're not willing to do, especially after fighting so hard for those positions in the first part of the lap. Here is a long off-camber corner, which ends very awkwardly here because people come very close to the barriers here and sometimes even into the net, and that's something that you would want to avoid because these poles are very nasty to hit. This is where you can rest a little bit. There's a couple of corners here, small changes compared to last year, but nothing too serious. It's once again not an all too technical course. Down this banking here where some people are a bit hesitant, but you can really fully send it through the corner and then up the banking again. Also no problems for that for most riders. We're now approaching the first pit zone, and the loop here is super long from the start. So if you crash or have a mechanical in the first part of the lap, you are really going to be race over, done for the day, because there's no way you're going to make it all the way here and come back again. You can see that the corner into pit 1 is quite slippery. We saw some riders spin out or crash there today, but the track should dry out tomorrow. We are now approaching the key part of the section, the barriers. It's very important to get a clean run here, especially during practice, so Magnus waits a bit, and here it's a small uphill followed by a right hand corner and then a very steep bank before the first barrier. They're definitely a lot harder to do than they look on TV, because you don't really see that bank before, which you could just see. You need to get all the speed you can get out of that corner and then really send it over that first barrier. Do a couple of pedal strokes before jumping the second one and then immediately powering up that climb. The main difference is made on that section right after the barriers. Running or jumping on the barriers themselves doesn't make much difference, but in the section after, if you have jumped, you can gain 5 seconds per lap easily on somebody who's walking. Another difficult thing is the gearing choice. What gear do you choose? You would ideally have a very small gear so you can get on the power right away after the barriers, but you need a kind of big gear to get up to speed before the first barrier. So that's something that most riders struggle with as well. Most riders in the men's elite race will be jumping them. Of course, Lars van der Haar is known that he will be running, and in the women's race only Puk Pietersen will be jumping them, at least from what we've seen so far. As you could have seen, after the barriers and climb, we had a downhill section which had quite a lot of corners. This is a place where you can give your legs a bit of rest, which is much needed as we have a lot of climbing to be done in the final part of the course. This part of the course has been stretched out a bit in the past couple of years, making the barriers a bit less important, and this year it's been stretched out even a bit more with another climbing section. It really drains your legs as it's a long false flat climb. The barriers, to get back to them, they are a bit easier as well, because they are now these LED screens. They are a bit shorter, they are 35 centimeters rather than 40, and the top of them are flat, so that makes it easy to basically ride over them and not crash as easily. At the top of this added section there's been a bit of an alteration compared to the course map. This section of 180 degrees corners, which we are approaching right now, seems to be added with the only purpose of satisfying sponsors. Low speed corners, lots of banners around them will get some nice TV time for the sponsors. They're not too difficult, they are bumpy as the rest of the track, but it shouldn't cause any issue. Really, these climbing sections here are the last places where you could have done anything to drop someone, because from here on it's basically downhill with the exception of an off-camber, which we'll approach now, and a small bank, and then it's really down towards the sprint. We can see that here this is a corner that you approach at very high speed. You need to brake as late as possible, and then we go towards the off-camber I just told you about. It's very awkward with this weird bump in here, but it doesn't cause too many problems for the riders. We're then into a 180 degree corner here, once again the hairpin, and then it's up a bank. It's a bit slippery, so it can be a bit tricky, but with the course drying out it shouldn't be too hard. It's a very straightforward course, maximizing the elevation they have here, but now it's towards pit 2. It's downhill, 90 degree right-hander, followed by a section of 2 corners as we come towards pit 2. This section also not all too difficult, you just need to watch out to not run wide and go into the barriers. Here is pit 2, probably won't see too many bike changes here unless it's really with a reason, because the speed you approach here is high. After the second pit we are going towards the final corner of the race, the one where we've seen many chain drops because of this bump here, but nowadays that should be fine. It's through this long corner onto the tarmac once again, and that is it for a hot lap of Tabor. Here you will either be sprinting it out, celebrating victory, or just crossing the line in whatever place you finished. Thanks for watching, and see you guys tomorrow in Tabor. Goodbye.